Most missing persons cases are quickly resolved, with the missing person in question returning home safe and sound. But some cases have bizarre twists and strange conclusions. Number 5. Dennis Rarick of Bethesda, Maryland, walked out of his apartment on a warm afternoon in August of 1976 and became a part of the bizarre phenomena of missing people who return years later with a completely new life. The exact details of Dennis's mysterious disappearance are hard to find, and it appears that his disappearance did not gain much media attention at the time. There are only a few newspaper reports and second-hand accounts of what happened to Dennis, and the only people who were tirelessly fighting for answers were his family members. To the outside world, Dennis had everything going for him. He was a great mathematician and computer scientist, and had given speeches on linear computing in the Netherlands. But deep down inside, Dennis was battling with his own demons. He continued to put on a brave face to everyone around him. However, in August of 1976, he snapped and decided that it was time to leave his current life behind. Dennis walked out of his apartment, leaving behind his ID documents, wallet, and his car. When his wife returned home later that day, she found a note that read, quote, "I'm going on the kind of trip where you never come back." His family feared the worst and began searching for him throughout Bethesda and the rest of Maryland, but to no avail. As the hours turned into days, Dennis's wife realized that her husband wasn't coming home. It appears that Dennis had left of his own accord, and there wasn't much that anyone else could do since he had voluntarily left. There's no documented evidence to suggest that Dennis was the subject of an official missing persons case, or that he was even reported missing at all. Then in 1990, the unthinkable happened. Dennis's father received a letter from his son, stating that he was alive and well and was ready to reunite with them. In the letter, he explained that for the past 14 years, he'd been living under the name of Leonard Cohn and had remarried a woman named Martha Weaver, and that the pair went on to have 2 children. The family had been living in San Marcos, California for almost a decade, and to the local community, they were an unassuming, quiet family. During a Christmas dinner, Dennis took his new wife to one side and confessed that he'd been living a lie. Over the course of a few weeks, he told her everything, explaining every minute detail, and even revealed he was 7 years older than the date of birth on his driver's license. He told the Los Angeles Times, quote, "There was no single event or critical thing, but it took a number of years to get over my emotional problems, and quite a few more years to gather the strength to come forward and tell the world what I had done. I'm a mathematician. I'm an algorithm design engineer. I solve problems." Dennis and his father regularly talked over the phone and spent the years they had together trying to rekindle their relationship and make up for lost time. Number 4. 25-year-old David Bigelow McDonald, a Korean War veteran and a night watchman in Hartford, Connecticut, stunned the local community when he vanished under mysterious circumstances on April 10th, 1956. On April 10th, David withdrew $265 from his bank account and told his wife Lydia that he was headed to Boston to look for a new car. The couple were expecting their first child and required something more suitable for a young family. His pregnant wife waited for him to return, but sadly he never did. When he hadn't returned by the next morning, he was reported as missing, and the Hartford Courant newspaper ran several stories about him and appealed to anyone with information to come forward. In a bizarre twist, David's family, who lived in Massachusetts, were not informed that he had gone missing until months later. David's father was a politician and would have had useful connections to help spur on the search for his son. On that fateful day in April of 1956, David's case went cold, and Lydia gave birth to their daughter in May of 1956. For years, Lydia wondered what happened to her husband, and above all, wanted his case to be resolved. She would have to wait until 2007 to find out the truth of what happened to David. According to the Hartford Courant, a woman named Gladys Vance and her family welcomed a man they knew as Eric Niels Sundgaard into their lives shortly after he arrived in Seattle in 1956. Sundgaard's relationship with Gladys was never romantic, and her children and grandchildren even referred to him as Uncle Eric. He became a key part of the Vance family and was always by Gladys's side through the rough and the smooth. Years passed, and Uncle Eric, as he became affectionately known, struck up a strong bond with Gladys's children. So when he was diagnosed with cancer in 2007, the whole family was devastated to learn that he had just weeks to live. 40-year-old Heather, one of Gladys's grandchildren, took the news especially hard and vowed to be at Uncle Eric's side until the end, as he had no family to speak of. After Uncle Eric had passed away, Heather was sorting through his personal belongings when she made a discovery that would turn her world upside down. Amongst his personal effects, she found a handwritten card that read, quote, "My first name was David Bigelow McDonald." This handwritten note had opened a gigantic can of worms that neither Heather nor the Vance family were prepared for. After searching the internet, Heather's aunt came across a missing persons report of a man named David Bigelow McDonald, who had disappeared from Hartford, Connecticut in 1956. They called authorities, who in turn contacted David's brother, Herman McDonald. Herman agreed to travel to Seattle, and in October of 2007, he formally identified the deceased man, known to authorities as Eric Niels Sundgaard, and confirmed that he was indeed his missing brother. Not content with the physical identification, authorities also cross-referenced military fingerprint records from the Korean War, and were able to conclusively say that Eric Sundgaard was David McDonald. David's wife, Lydia, was contacted by David's family, who broke the news to her. In the years after her husband's disappearance, Lydia was forced to get on with her life as a single mother before remarrying and having 2 more children. She told the Hartford News, quote, "Suddenly, he had a lot of responsibility that might have been stressful, but to use another name and stay hidden for so long, he must have had a lot of fear. Stress is a kind of fear." Number 3. Christina Davidson mysteriously vanished from her home, located on the 500 block of Elder Road in Kilgore, Texas, on May 15, 2014. And the conclusion of her case is almost unbelievable. When Christina didn't show up for her shift on May 16, 2014, coworkers became concerned as this was extremely out of character for her. They tried to call her and text her, but were unable to make contact with her, and soon after they called police and filed a missing persons report. Later that day, Christina's purse was found on Loop 390 in Marshall, Texas, just a few miles from her home in Kilgore, but there was no sign of Christina. Her phone was missing from the purse, and there was no sign of her 1992 Toyota Camry, leading investigators to believe that Christina had possibly been abducted and taken in her car. The Kilgore Police Department quickly found themselves at a dead end and called in the help of the FBI to help speed up the investigation and increase their chances of finding Christina alive. FBI agents began combing through her home and were alarmed when they came across signs of a struggle. This confirmed their theory of a possible abduction, and they were now racing against the clock to locate Christina. Christina had previously been married to Craig Davidson, and it's unknown how long they had been divorced. Craig had a long list of prior convictions, and Christina's friends testified that he had been violent towards her throughout their entire relationship. The community of Kilgore, Texas were left stunned when on July 29, 2014, Craig, Christina's ex-husband, was officially named as a person of interest and was arrested in relation to a previous offense against her. The exact details of this were never released to the public. However, the Kilgore Police Department strongly suspected that Craig was responsible for Christina's disappearance. It wouldn't be until late 2014 that investigators and the FBI explained just how wrong they had been. On Wednesday, September 3rd, 2014, a woman fitting the description of Christina was arrested in Lexington, Kentucky at a gas station for being in possession of an illegal substance. She was extradited from Kentucky back to Texas to serve her sentence and appears to have been responsible for her own disappearance. Number 2. Everyone who knew 29-year-old David Stone had nothing but good things to say about the stock market analyst. He was charming, successful, and had everything going for him with the whole world at his feet. So when he disappeared under mysterious circumstances, those closest to David struggled to understand just what could have happened to a young man who showed so much potential. David's case begins on October 28, 1988, when he threw a party at his La Jolla, California apartment for his friends. David was originally from El Paso, Texas, but had moved to La Jolla to attend the La Jolla Academy of Advertising Arts, where he fell into the New Age movement and began working towards what he considered enlightenment. His friends told police that he would regularly meditate and often spoke about visiting Sedona, Arizona, to embark on an important spiritual journey. David seemed to have become somewhat obsessed with Sedona, mentioning it frequently in conversation and enthusiastically discussing his plans to visit one day. Despite his interest in New Age spirituality and meditation, David did have anger issues that he struggled to keep under control. And these issues finally came to a head at the party on October 28, 1988. The exact details of what occurred that evening are unknown. However, sources tell us that David and one of his friends got into a disagreement that quickly became heated. The two shouted back and forth until the argument turned into a physical altercation. Those at the party said that David lost it and began hitting his friend repeatedly. Thankfully, the fight was broken up, and David told everyone that he was going to take a walk to think about his actions. This would be the last time that his friends and family saw him. However, this wasn't the last official sighting of him. According to David's friends and family, he told them that he intended to be gone for no more than a few days, and needed to take some time out to realign himself and calm down. On October 31st, 1988, on Halloween, David was seen by a farmer walking into the desert 145 miles east of Tucson, Arizona, close to the border with New Mexico. The two had a brief conversation, and the farmer recalled that David told him that he was looking for the beast. It's unknown whether David was referring to something within the New Age spirituality, or if he had had a psychological break. His car was found 5 days later on November 5th, 1988, on a New Mexico highway. There was no sign of David, and he had seemingly vanished. His car had been abandoned near pyramid-shaped mountains, and investigators found the Fibonacci sequence written in the sand close to where his car had been abandoned. However, David had written 18 instead of 21. Police began to wonder whether David had left them a trail of cryptic clues, as his car was found close to mile marker 18, and 18 was a number he gravitated towards in life. As if David's disappearance wasn't bizarre enough, he also left the following note for his parents, saying, quote, "They think the word is in the safe. 6 knives in Rob's room. Use buys your tea and use takes your chances Halloween." As previously mentioned, Halloween of 1988 was the last time that David was seen alive, and many people believe that this cryptic note alludes to that. On February 23, 1922, 2 hikers traveling near the Granite Gap in New Mexico came across the skeletal remains of an adult male. These remains were confirmed to be David Stone. However, the coroner was not able to conclude his cause or approximate time of death. David's case has remained a mystery ever since, and we're left with more questions than answers. Number 1. Vera Lorene Roberts, who was known to her family as Lorene, had lived a turbulent life, and by February of 1964, she was working as a waitress in Austin, Texas. Between 1957 and 1961, Vera had been admitted to the Texas State Mental Hospital at least 5 times, and her family noticed that her mental state was rapidly deteriorating, and they did everything they could to support her. Vera married her husband in 1949, just 10 days after meeting him, and the pair went on to have 3 children together. Sadly, the marriage was not meant to be, and in 1956, the pair got divorced, with Vera taking custody of the children. According to Vera's family, her new in-laws did not approve of her and gave her a hard time, and put a significant strain on the relationship between her and her husband. After the divorce was finalized, her family began noticing that her mental health was slowly going downhill, and as mentioned before, she was admitted to the mental hospital at least 5 times. Unable to cope with her mental health issues and the pressure of being a mother, Vera placed her 3 children up for adoption, telling her family that it was only fair that the children had a happy and stable upbringing. Years passed by, and Vera worked hard to overcome her mental issues. However, oftentimes she would relapse and ended back up in treatment. The last time that Vera Loreen was seen alive was on February 12, 1964, when she admitted herself into a different mental institution. After this, Vera never made contact with her family again, and simply faded away and became a distant memory. It wasn't until Vera's mother passed away that her family realized she was well and truly missing. When Vera's mother passed away, she left $100,000 to each of her children. The only problem was, nobody could locate Vera. Vera's family appealed to the TV show Unsolved Mysteries to help them get answers, and in 1991, they aired an episode that contained details about Vera's untimely disappearance. And you'll never guess who was watching that exact episode when it aired. None other than Vera Loreen Roberts herself. Vera contacted the show to tell them that she was safe and well, and had been living in Little Rock, Arkansas since she vanished in 1964. She also explained that she'd been using her first name, Vera, instead of her middle name, Loreen. Vera and her sisters were reunited shortly after the show aired, and they were ecstatic that they finally had their sister back. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.